As news of the recent demonstrations that swept across Iran, the second of their kind in less than a year, dominated the headlines, there were other important developments that may not have received the attention they deserve. Among these developments is the establishment of the Shiite clerical establishment in the face of what may be considered the greatest challenge facing it since its formation in the 16th century. And since many members of Iran's ruling elite wear religious clothing, outside observers often assume that the Shiite clergy as an institution rules Iran. However, upon taking a closer look, it becomes clear that this belief is nothing more than an optical illusion, not a reality. According to the highest available estimates, Iran, India, and Iraq, which together comprise nearly 80% of the world's Shiites, have about 400,000 clerics, most of them Iranian or boasting of some Iranian background. Nevertheless, we find that a very small percentage of them cooperate with Tehran. The figures indicate that Iran employs about 25,000 clerics in Iran, and funds 10,000 other clerics in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, and a number of other African and Asian countries. In Iran, the largest class of mullahs on the government wage list is the Friday prayer imams, who are all appointed by the supreme guide Ayatollah Khamenei. Also, Khamenei appoints and funds the 9 members of the Fatwa Council, which is located in Qom, and includes prominent figures, such as Ayatollah Nasir Mokarram Shirazi. In addition, the Islamic Republic controls and finances the seminary in Qom, which is headed by Ayatollah Muhammad Yazdi. Nevertheless, the largest proportion of the religious establishment in Iran has managed to retain a great deal of its traditional independence from political power. According to estimates made by Hassan Kalkali, a prominent researcher in clerical-related affairs, with regard to the numbers of followers, imitators, the number of state-appointed clerics does not constitute more than 10% of their total. In addition, more than 90% of Iranians who still pay the khums or the imam's share, an informal tax paid to clerics, direct their money to mullahs far away from the state as much as possible, given the current conditions in the country. According to sources in Qom, Grand Ayatollah Ali Muhammad al-Sistani, a prominent Iranian cleric who lives in Najaf and is recognized today as the current reference of tradition, receives more than half of all donations made by Iranians. In return, it recycles it through more than 150 businesses and charitable organizations. All this means that the late Ayatollah Khomeiни's dream of merging religion and state in Iran was not fulfilled, as the Islamic Republic he founded soon reverted to the original model in which the Shiite clerical establishment played a prominent role, while the first political power remained in the hands of the ruler. Under the leadership of Khamenei, the role of ruler is assumed by a cleric who nevertheless remains unable to claim supremacy in religious affairs. As one of the 20 greatest clerics of his time, Khamenei was the reference of Taqlid for many believers in parts of Iran, but he never reached the great stature of other clerics with the title of Grand Ayatollah, such as Abd al-Hassan Isfahani or Muhammad Hussein Burujurdi in the areas where they were. Today, the status of Khamenei, in which he pretends to be a reference, appears to be more suspicious. According to Qadhamisar, the leading expert on Shiite religious affairs, the reference must meet 5 conditions. The first is that he should be a descendant of Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace. The second condition is that he has an Iranian background and holds Iranian nationality. And the third is to be able to speak Persian and Arabic fluently. Fourth, whoever becomes a marja must have published a message attesting to his knowledge. Finally, he should be attested by a number of great ayatollahs as being the first among his peers. Regarding Khamenei, we find that he meets the first 3 conditions, but he is far from the last 2. The circle close to him had spread rumors that he had put the final touches to the message that he would soon present. Individuals close to Khamenei's circle said that the letter was ready, but he feared that he would be exposed to possible criticism, which would push him towards a continuous delay in publishing it in full. Fear itself has prevented him from publishing collections of his poems that he composed for more than half a century, but they are only known to a handful of those close to him. Khamenei receives letters of praise from ayatollahs, paying them money in Qom and elsewhere, but he has never been attested to as the first among peers. This last point caused him a number of problems. For example, Khamenei cannot travel to Najaf in Iraq, the holiest city for Shiites, because if he went there he would have to meet Sistani and 2 or 3 others there with the title of Grand Ayatollah. However, it is unlikely that Sistani and perhaps the other Grand Ayatollahs would go to Khamenei's residence because this would mean they would acknowledge that he is superior to them. If Khamenei goes to Sistani, for example, then this means that he abandoned his claim to be the leader of the Shiites, or as the constitution of his republic states, the leader of the Islamic nation as a whole. Considerations of meeting Sistani prevented Khamenei from traveling to Iraq. It is worth noting that before Khamenei seized power in 1979, Sistani used to travel to Iran every year for the pilgrimage to Qom, his hometown of Mashhad. However, he was forced to end this tradition because if he travels to Iran, he will have to visit Khamenei or Khamenei now, and thus this will come as an admission that they are higher than him. At the same time, if he ignores them, and does not come to visit him, this will be an indication of a serious rift in the Shiite clerical establishment. Meanwhile, a new generation of clerics is emerging in Qam and Najaf who, if religion continues to be a central factor in society, will likely seek to create the greatest possible distance between them and Khomeiни's worldview. For example, we find that Grand Ayatollah Muhammad Javad Ala'i al-Baruherdi, who despite maintaining good relations with Khomeini, is slowly charting an entirely different course for Shiite society. Thus, it becomes clear that the founding of the Islamic Republic was a heresy destined for the inevitable rejection of the Shiite religious tradition. It was an attempt to integrate political and religious powers, something considered detested by the original Safavid model. Over the past 4 decades, this republic has divided the Shiites between two worlds, one religious and the other political, trying to coexist with each other, but with difficulty. The political reality today indicates that the Shiite sect is led by Khomeini, who controls a large country, as well as large financial and economic resources, despite the current problems in the flow of liquidity. And inside many centers, this political reality could contribute to buying support, in addition to creating and financing parallel armies and mercenary groups in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Gaza, and others. However, this political reality cannot win real power on the religious level. Even within Lebanon, where the Islamic Republic has spent more than $20 billion over the past decades, the overwhelming majority of Shiites still look to Najaf and Qam, not Tehran, as a source of religious guidance. Sistani's and Khomeini's response to the current political chaos in Iraq and Iran highlights the state of political religious schizophrenia that strikes the Shiites today. Sistani sided with the demonstrators and advised the authorities to deal with them in what could be described as a child glove, meaning gentle and gentle. Because his goal is to maintain his links with society. As for Khomeini, he is directing an iron fist policy because he wants to prolong the current political situation. As news of the recent demonstrations that swept across Iran, the second of their kind in less than a year, dominated the headlines, there were other important developments that may not have received the attention they deserve. Among these developments is the establishment of the Shiite clerical establishment in the face of what may be considered the greatest challenge facing it since its formation in the 16th century. And since many members of Iran's ruling elite wear religious clothing, outside observers often assume that the Shiite clergy as an institution rules Iran. However, upon taking a closer look, it becomes clear that this belief is nothing more than an optical illusion, not a reality. According to the highest available estimates, Iran, India, and Iraq, which together comprise nearly 80% of the world's Shiites, have about 400,000 clerics, most of them Iranian or